He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome to Coast View, the show that celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi, and Mississippi for that matter, a better place to live, work, and play. Hey, yesterday, Kyle and I talked about the tropics, and we were just reminding you to get your plan ready to go. Know what you're going to do. Don't wait till a hurricane is headed our way before you get your plan together. There's a lot to take your attention with the election and pandemic and all the things that are related to that. So just pay attention. There are a couple of tropical waves that are out there now. This is the peak of the hurricane season that we're entering now. So just be aware and pay close attention because it might be one of those kind of nail-biter seasons. So let's hope we don't get hit because that's the last thing coastal Mississippi needs in the midst of all the other challenges that we have. One other thing I want to share with you is I got a wonderful note from Stan Stark, our 81-year-old Gulfport guy who's headed down the Mississippi River. He started at the headwaters. He's going to paddle all the way down to the opening of the mouth of the Mississippi River at the Gulf of Mexico in his sea kayak. He sent me this note. Thanks, Ricky. Celebrating my 81st birthday today. I am camped on the banks of the Big Muddy at mile marker 827, some 25 miles downriver from Minneapolis. Passed through our first lock and dam yesterday, only 27 more to negotiate. We'll be paddling on to Hastings today. This is the 33rd day of my journey, and all has gone well so far. Every day brings a new and exciting experience. Can't think of a better way to celebrate my 81st. All the best to you and your family. Cheers, Stan. That video with Stan, that conversation with Stan really struck a nerve. I think it's got over 4,000 views. The post has touched over 7,000 people. And, of course, we have the podcast and YouTube and all that. If you missed it, you can go to the SuperTalk Gulf Coast Facebook page and take a look at it. Stan Stark is my new hero. We talk almost every day on this show about how technology has really transformed our ability to move on with facets of our life during the pandemic. I mean, literally just about comes up every day. We continue to do learning. Our kids are learning using distance learning technologies. They've had these technologies have had a significant impact on Mississippi schools. We talked to administrators across the coast, like Wayne Rodolphich, many times about the transformative nature of the technology and how it's enabled their plans to get our kids back to learning. In the area of medicine, if you think about this before the pandemic, there were actually a lot of stifling federal restrictions in place that really limited the use of telemedicine. But after the pandemic, those restrictions were lifted, and telemedicine has literally taken off. We've discussed how these significant enabling changes have changed things for hospitals, for example, with hospital administrators like Memorial's Kent Nico. In the business world, man, there have been seismic shifts in the use of technology that have enabled telecommuting like never before. And our conversation with Gulfport Biloxi Airport Executive Director Clay Williams just yesterday, we talked about how technology has really impacted the way that airports are operating, where airlines operate, and it may have an impact in the future of business travel. We've talked to chamber members. We've discussed how technology enables them to continue to meet the needs of their members, and we've also talked about how they're using technology to do virtual learning sessions, for example. And in terms of the significant strategic business opportunities going forward for Mississippi, it's really inspiring to talk to people like the Coast Business Council President Ashley Edwards and the head of the entrepreneurial efforts for Mississippi State University, Eric Hill. Ashley and Eric talk a lot about the new economy, telecommuting, and how Mississippi has this incredible opportunity to build what Eric Hill talks about, the Silicon Delta, to become a sought-after location for technology entrepreneurs. Even with this show, Coast View, my producer, Kyle Curley, and I have been using technology to do this show. I'm operating from right here in my studio at my house, and Kyle is performing multiple roles from his control center at his house. But there's a common link between all of these activities and these opportunities for Mississippi going forward, and that is we have to have adequate internet speeds. Kyle and I have learned that lesson extremely well since we started doing these shows remotely in March. Unreliable broadband in this pandemic moment has eliminated this key to success in Mississippi's future. For way too long, I think Mississippi's actually been near the bottom. You may not know this, but in January 2019, Phil Bryant actually signed the Mississippi Broadband Enabling Act. What this act did is it actually removes the 1942 regulations that prevented electric cooperatives from offering anything other than electricity to its members. Almost immediately after the bill was signed, there were a number of Mississippi electric co-ops who began building fiber to the homes in their coverage areas. But there is a big but. We are a big-time rural state. Electric co-ops can only go so far with those plans because their business model doesn't work any longer when you start to take into account the vast rural areas of Mississippi. This brings me to the end of the 2020 pandemic Mississippi legislative session that concluded with the beginning at the beginning of July with lawmakers allocating $275 million of CARE Act funding. Now, this is the money the federal government allocated to states to deal with the pandemic, but there were limitations placed on it. In this case, to improve broadband and distance learning efforts for rural areas, there were three main bills. The first one was the COVID-19 Connectivity Act. It was authored by Senator Joel Carter and establishes a grant program to expand service to unserved or underserved areas. The program had a lot of different pieces to it, but essentially $65 million is set aside for electric co-ops, and there's a one-to-one match. So for every dollar a co-op spends, it's matched with $1 from the federal government. It also had $10 million available for other service providers. There was another bill, a House bill, called the Mississippi Pandemic Response Broadband Availability Grant Program, which provided $50 million to the Mississippi Department of Education for grants K through 12 area for internet connectivity as well. And then there was the bill from the Senate that was authored by Senator Dennis DeBar, appropriating $150 million to K through 12 education to equip students with laptops and enhance distance learning opportunities, et cetera. Almost immediately in their July meeting, the Public Service Commission voted to establish what is called the Connect Mississippi Committee. Now, this committee has experts representing North, Central, and South Mississippi in the areas of education, economic development, and medical services. Now, they've got a really big role to play as they identify best practices for internet use practices. And so there's a lot to talk about today, which brings me to my guest today. I'm pleased to be joined by the chairman of the Public Service Commission, Dane Maxwell, Wayne Rodolphich, the superintendent of schools for Pascagoula and Gaucher School System, Shannon Strunk from Barbara Strunk Enterprises, and Kent Nico, the CEO of Memorial Hospital at Gulfport. So anyway, thank you guys for joining me. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having us.
You bet. It's a really important conversation. We've got an opportunity in this show to sort of bring it all together and help people really understand how this moment in Mississippi history could be truly transformative. We know that it is. So let me turn to you, Dane Maxwell, and let you sort of add some flavor to sort of the history that I just talked about leading to this meeting that we're having now. And you can add whatever you want to it, and then talk a little bit more about what this committee and what you're hoping to get out of this committee.
Well, thank you, Ricky, for having us. One of the biggest challenges that we have is going to be getting the word out as to what we're doing and keep people informed as we move forward. We've got a number of shovel-ready projects now that are already started, and that's why the thought of bringing in experts, the Public Service Commission, they don't regulate internet. So people are under the assumption that we do, but no, we just decided to be the leader on it and take the bull by the horns and get out there and ahead of it. One of the ideas of putting the Connect Mississippi Committee together is because we are not experts in that, and we don't pretend to be. However, we all agree that we can hire people smarter than us, right? and then we've been using that tactic from my dad, that taught me years ago. But Wayne was naturally my first thought when we talked about this committee and connectivity across the state of Mississippi, simply because he's already done it. If you look at the Pascagoula school systems, every school has had challenges, but not a lot to the Pascagoula school district, because Wayne already built a network. So his expertise in building this network, although it was between two schools, will certainly be invaluable to a lot of the co-ops and stuff as they move along building these systems and how they put them in place. We wanted to hit the education side because COVID really showed what the needs were going to be on the education side from now on. I think it changes. A lot of people will not go back to the way it used to be. Many of your junior colleges have embraced this, and online learning has just started really coming to light to a lot of people. And so this COVID drove that. If you want to look at a positive coming out of it, that was a huge positive. So Wayne was a natural choice. In this committee, though, we understood that the need for telemedicine was going to be real. It was happening. We need to bring those guys in and get their expertise so we have a complete team. And, my first thought was Kent Nico. He's a great leader. He's a great chairman of his hospital. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. That's okay. What we'll do, let's do this. When we come back from the break, we'll pick it up right there. We can continue your conversation about Kent Nico and why he was selected to be a member of this group. In fact, I'm a big fan of Kent's and think he's done a terrific job leading Memorial and just being a leader in the state. So we'll come back to that in just a second. But this is Dane Maxwell that we're having a conversation with, and members of his new committee that are going to be focused on helping Mississippi really grasp the opportunity in front of us, this broadband opportunity in front of us to really take advantage of the opportunities that we have that have been revealed by the pandemic. We'll be back after this break.
Follow SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook. Facebook.com/SuperTalk MS Coast 103.1.
Get out of the house and over to Big Play today. 2 massive arcades, bowling, go-karts, 2 mini golf courses, a 2-story state-of-the-art laser tag arena, bumper cars, and right now get a $50 game card for only $25. Visit our station's Facebook and print on demand so you can play at Big Play Entertainment Center now. These deals won't last long, so make sure you get your half-off deal. Big Play Entertainment Center, Highway 90, Biloxi. Bowl, play, eat. Go to our station's Facebook to get your half-off deal now.
What decisions are being made by state lawmakers, and how will they affect you, your family, and community? If you listen, you'll know. SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk app, and at supertalk.fl.
Hi, I'm Billy Kinder, host of Big Billy Kinder Outdoors here, the show Saturdays at 1, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Turkeys, whitetail, Grenada Lake crappie, or Gulfport redfish. We enjoy it all, especially when you're in camp with us on SuperTalk Mississippi.
You could be spreading the coronavirus without realizing you have it, so do your part and stay home. It's important to limit in-person interaction with anyone outside of your immediate household, but phone and video chat are safe ways to connect. It's also important to limit social gatherings. If you need essential items like food and medicine, try using a delivery service. If you must leave your house for essential items, or if you want to take a walk for exercise, make sure to wear a cloth face covering. Stay at least 6 feet away from other people. Try not to frequently touch surfaces like light signals, street signs, or benches. And wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds as often as possible. This advice applies to people of any age, including teens and younger adults. It takes all of us to slow the spread of the coronavirus, so stay home unless absolutely necessary. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have a wonderful team of leaders with us today. First of all, we have the chairman of the Public Service Commission, Dane Maxwell, and then 3 members of his Connect Mississippi committee. We just introduced Wayne Rodolphus just a second ago, and he was in the process of introducing Kent Nico. But before we move on, Dane, I just want to say one of the indications that you just pointed out, and that is that Wayne Rodolphus was already on the cutting edge and already in a wonderful position to offer so much leadership to this conversation, is the fact that you guys are actually positioned currently all together at the Performing Arts Center there as part of the Gaucher Pascal school system. And you're able to be with me separated in that building using technology. What a wonderful example of Wayne being on the cutting edge. Wayne, thank you for hosting us like this.
Well, and Ricky, I wish I could take all the credit, but I have one of the most talented technology staffs that have been working together now for about 15 years. And it's just an evolution of progress and watching what the trends are and having a team that goes and learns what has to be learned, because in the evolution of technology, everything is new every other day.
Yeah. Well, thank your team. And Cal thanks them as well, because they did a terrific job of helping us set this up. This is not an easy thing to pull off, not only for the radio audience, but for YouTube and Facebook. What a terrific job you guys did. Okay, Dane, let me turn it back to you, and you can continue with your conversation about Kent.
Well, I was saying how easy it was to pick Kent because of the leadership that he's shown, along with the great hospital at Gulfport Memorial Hospital. And with telemed moving ahead, light speed too, we've got to have somebody with that expertise in our committee involved in leading us in that side of the house too. And then another part of what we wanted to accomplish was the economic development side, bringing in the business leaders. And so we brought together Shannon Strunk, who is a very successful business guy on the coast. And he's one of the leaders as well, and he understands it. He really gets what connectivity is and what it's going to mean, these economic development projects, simply because I believe, and I think he'll agree with me, when the economic development that we see in Mississippi will explode once we connect Mississippians to other parts of the world. And there's a lot of parts of Mississippi that have no opportunity for that. So this is one of those things that's going to result in such a great committee working with this the legislature on the economic development side. And then lastly, I have Krista Alexander, which is a vice president of operations of telecommunications, which obviously industry is going to play a big role in this. You've seen what the electric co-ops are doing now. Mississippi Power and Entergy, we passed a law allowing them to share fiber, so that will extend our connectivity, and they have probably around 3,000 miles of in-ground and above ground fiber now. So that means those electric co-ops can tie into their lines and then run from there. So it's a great team. I'll let each one of them speak on their specific expertise, but that's just kind of the layout. And the intent of the committee is to have these guys come back and report to us and share best practices as we move forward connecting Mississippians.
Yeah, that sounds good. Why don't we go to Kent first? Kent, you and I have had a lot of conversations about this, but as I said in the opening, telemedicine has exploded. The use of technology in general during this pandemic has been incredibly important to your success so far. Talk more about that.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to think about. 6 months ago, telemedicine was absolutely strong across the country, and including the ability to perform virtual visits in our state was pretty prevalent. But the acceptance of the patient and the community to understand that care can be given, and it necessarily did not require a in-person visit to a physician. Transportation across our rural state is very difficult, and the ability for patients to get to an appointment. If you're living in a rural market and you've suffered a stroke in the past, following up with your neurologist is not an easy task. It's a commitment for transportation, and it usually involves other family members. Well, one of the um, sort of the shining stars, or one of the blessings that came out of this pandemic, is the acceptance that telemedicine does work. The ability for a patient to be managed while at home and be positive for the virus is very sustainable and has worked. And I think our communities have now recognized that it doesn't necessarily require a face-to-face in-person visit, but that your ability to be managed and your medical care to be given while you're at home is very acceptable. And now, we're doing 2,000 visits a day telemedicine-wise. We're managing over 500 positive COVID patients while they're sitting at home. Um, Quarantined. So the ability is there. You know, Less than 5 years ago, we've had about 14 more rural hospitals than we have today. In 19, there was a national study done in rural hospitals that was projected that Mississippi would lose somewhere between 12 and 14 additional rural hospitals. There was a study that came out at the beginning, actually in the middle of March after the pandemic started, where it was estimated that almost half of Mississippi's rural hospitals may close. Um, with Mississippi Connect, Connect Mississippi, there could not have been a more appropriate name that really addresses, from a healthcare standpoint, of how we can sustain these rural hospitals, and the state has an infrastructure built to help support them. The ability for a patient in a rural area to go to an ER exists today, but that patient then has to be transported with no information being shared. This committee can assist in that rural facility having fiber that will allow them to have a connection not only to a neurologist that is in a different location, but the ability to read a CT scan, which requires a very large broadband so that you can see the actual study. So then you can determine, when I'm shipping, do I need to initiate a drug so that the effect of the drug begins minimizing those effects on that stroke. So this is going to save lives truly across our state, and more importantly, allow the rural hospitals to continue to give care without the cost that will affect them bottom line, which makes them more sustainable in their market.
Wow, it is incredible. I mean, to really associate connecting Mississippi to literally saving lives, as you just pointed out, just so darn important. It's quite amazing, really, that we weren't already there. But in this pandemic moment, we have now this compelling case for action, a real opportunity now to move forward. Shannon, talk to me about your observations on the business side.
I see an opportunity for Connect Mississippi to really address the challenges of communication, broadband. I mean, for me, we're all sitting in communities that have great service, but for me, our locations expand into rural markets, and those are much more limited. You take it as simple as a interview. So during this time, we don't interview live anymore. We're doing it as the medical field. We're doing it all on video. Well, those more rural communities, you have the video compression or quality that is seriously degraded, and you literally will lose those and have to restart the interview or lose what they're saying. And I see that as the bottom tier, but I see the opportunity for us to really change that a lot. I mean, currently, I'll say maybe we're in the 1 gig area down here. Us getting up to 10 gig actually creates an opportunity for us in the future to really heighten the economic vitality of Mississippi. You take 10 gig, I'm not saying I'm a proponent of autonomous vehicles, but if Mississippi had that type of coverage, you would see that type of activity coming in. So what I see the opportunity for the economic side for us to drastically change the opportunities that come into Mississippi. And so I'm excited to be part of that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. As I mentioned, Eric Hill, the guy head of that entrepreneur program at Mississippi State, when he talks about the Silicon Delta, I mean, it is I get it. I get it when you think about the opportunities to have a wonderful quality of life and to attract the kind of technology jobs that we need, that will be, as I've talked about on the show, a fill-in between the manufacturing sector and the hospitality sector. If we could get those middle jobs that are part of this sort of new economy and the creative class of jobs, man, it could be incredibly transformative. And having connectivity is a key in that. Why don't we do this? We're gonna move to break, but when we come back, we're going to hear from Wayne Rodolfich, who has a really compelling story to tell about the use of technology in the school systems and how they've been using it. So this is Chairman of the Public Service Commission, Dane Maxwell, and his team from the Connect Mississippi Committee, and we'll be back after this break.
Be sure to go by this station's website and check out the half-off deals. Audubon Zoo tickets for just $15. That's half price. $30 zoo tickets for just $15. Again, go to this station's website or Facebook. Look for the half-off deals logo to purchase yours now.
Heart attacks and strokes don't stay home. So don't avoid the ER out of anxiety. Don't die of doubt. If you have an emergency, call 911. When seconds count, the hospital is the safest place to be.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. Talking to Paul Thorne, Mississippi true treasure, really incredible recording artist, singer, songwriter, has been doing it a long time, doing it the right way.
It's almost like a Forrest Gump thing because, I was a boxer, / I worked in a furniture factory, / I had a gig 2 nights a week playing my acoustic guitar in a pizza restaurant, / I was in the National Guard, and,
Wow.
All this stuff was going on at the same time. / I had a writing contract with Rick Hall and Fame.
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
There's a place to share gossip about the office party fun, and a place to share the story you tell everyone. There's a place to share a laugh about when things went wrong, and a place to share the video of you dancing to your song. There's a place to share spare change, lunch, and your time. But we could all be better at sharing how we're feeling inside. 76% of employees have struggled with at least one issue that affected their mental health. When you share, you're not alone.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi, and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
This is House Call for Health. There may be no greater medical mystery and no greater tragedy than sudden infant death syndrome. It used to be known as crib death. For no apparent reason, a presumably healthy sleeping baby dies. Medical experts don't have clear-cut answers to what causes sudden infant death, or SIDS, but now they have 2 risk factors: smoking and drinking during pregnancy beyond the first 3 months. A new study finds that babies whose mothers drank alcohol and smoked tobacco after the first trimester are at far greater risk of SIDS, 12 times greater. Previous studies showed a risk of smoking and drinking individually. This study says doing both drastically increases the danger. The research is sponsored by the National Institutes of Health, which is calling for greater publicity about the danger and improved screening at the very beginning of a pregnancy. For more health news, go to foxnewshealth.com. House Call for Health. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
You could be spreading the coronavirus without realizing you have it, so do your part and stay home. It's important to limit in-person interaction with anyone outside of your immediate household, but phone and video chat are safe ways to connect. It's also important to limit social gatherings. If you need essential items like food and medicine, try using a delivery service. If you must leave your house for essential items, or if you want to take a walk for exercise, make sure to wear a cloth face covering. Stay at least 6 feet away from other people. Try not to frequently touch surfaces like light signals, street signs, or benches. And wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds as often as possible. This advice applies to people of any age, including teens and younger adults. It takes all of us to slow the spread of the coronavirus, so stay home unless absolutely necessary. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information.
Whether you're a Rebel, a Bulldog, a Golden Eagle, or just a sports fan, SuperTalk Mississippi has got a podcast for you. For you. Sports Talk Mississippi, the Rebel Report, Thunder and Lightning, the SuperTalk Eagle Hour, and the Borky Show are all now available for you. And it's all free. Get them all on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for SuperTalk on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen. Okay. Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices. He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We had a terrific conversation in that last segment about the truly transformational relationship between success in the future of Mississippi and the ability to connect us. The broadband access is really important. Kent Nico, of course, addressed it from a telemedicine point of view, and you get into the rural hospitals and the relationship they have with their patients. Broadband access, the ability to have access, could literally save lives in a telemedicine scenario. And we have real opportunities, and we're engaged in those opportunities now with very significant opportunities in the future as it relates to this. Then Shannon Strunk talked about the transformative nature of technology and internet access to business and the opportunities that exist there. Now we're going to shift gears and move over to our friend Wayne Rodolfich. He's known, as we talked about earlier, as being sort of a cutting-edge superintendent. And I've had shows dedicated to this subject with him. His whole plan and how he planned to get kids back in school was so technology involved. So, Wayne, why don't you share your thoughts about this?
Well, going back several years, Ricky, in 2013, I gave a speech to the Mississippi Association of School Superintendents, and I told them at that time that the technology train is coming. And I used multiple statistics and the number of apps that are out there and the necessity of bandwidth. And at that time, I think about less than 10% of the state had adequate bandwidth for the students that were in their schools. So this has been something that I've continued to build on. I wrote an editorial for the Sun Herald about using BP money to create the Silicon Sound so that we'd have a bandwidth corridor across the Mississippi Gulf Coast, because you have rail, you have ports, you have airports, you have I-10, you have Highway 90, but you didn't have at that time that corridor bandwidth. Well, I think we're saturated with some of that bandwidth now here locally. But when you look around the state of Mississippi, there's a deficit in the amount of bandwidth that's available. And let me tell you about an experiment that we conducted this summer through our Tech Camp for Teachers. Using a total distance learning platform, we advertised that we're going to have a Tech Camp for Teachers in the Pascagoula Go Chase School District that was totally virtual. We had 30 sessions over a 2-day period, and we had to shut down the amount of people who were in it because 2,200 people had signed up, with more on the way. And so we trained 2,200 people over a 2-day period on 30 different sessions with 3 people. And if there's ever been a deficit and a necessity for training of teachers in the state of Mississippi to use online distance learning platforms, it's right now. So we are now evolving that using other districts such as Vicksburg, Warren with Chad Shealy. We're trying to get in touch with Corinth to work up there with their superintendent. And we're trying to build this gateway to training, which costs absolutely nothing. And we use 3 total people to manage both days. And this is live answering questions for everybody who is on the sessions. So when I talk about the transformative nature and the opportunity here, when you have a Mississippi Delta that has a deficit in resources, you can provide the same resources to everyone across the state of Mississippi, very much like telemedicine. And I can remember being a patient several years ago whenever they started introducing, we're going to put everything on an iPad, and the revolt that was taking place with some of the physicians that no, they weren't ready to transform. Well, now I would imagine they're all saying, thank God we made that transformation, because now you can instantaneously pull that data and have it at your fingertips. And I think that's the important thing, the resource capability that we have to give resources. But not only that, I heard a great point made about using this distance learning platform. If you gave I Have a Dream speech from Martin Luther King, and you told students, you're going to have to watch this speech tonight and we'll discuss it tomorrow. So now you're not taking that time out of class to actually show the speech. You have that already taken care of. When you get to the speech, you can have a full dialogue about how that was impactful to the students.
So Wayne, talk for a second about how, let's talk about the here and now. Just take any classroom in your school district and explain how technology is enabling you in your pandemic plan.
Well, we use Ingenuity at our high schools, which is almost a canned system, but it's also monitored by teachers. But we also use Google Classroom in our classrooms, and we also use the Canvas platform, which is the exact same platform that's used at our colleges. So not only are students learning how to use these college platforms, but the teachers are also learning to become experts. And our goal is by the end of this month to have all of our teachers at our secondary level completely trained on Canvas. So there's a multitude of things that are happening, but I can't emphasize the importance of in-class instruction, and that the technology is a great part of what we do, but you really can't replace that dynamic classroom teacher.
Well, that's good. Anything else you want to add?
Well, I just appreciate Commissioner Dane Maxwell providing this opportunity for the people of Mississippi. It's a visionary effort, and we're very excited about being a part of it in the Pasco Betche School District.
That's good. Hey, Shannon, coming back to you for a second, you mentioned that you were doing interviews using the technology. I mean, for someone who's used to doing the in-person interviews your whole career, how much of a change was that?
Well, I mean, for us to, start doing them, had to get used to it. But I will tell you that could change how we do them in the future anyway. Because if the signal, the video, if everything is fine, you don't have to travel. So when we're interviewing people from even outside of Mississippi, they're really right there in the conference room, whatever room we're in. So I will tell you, I actually like those. We spend a few minutes, just getting people comfortable. And once we get to that point, you can really have an interview as if he's sitting right across the table from you. So I actually like it. It's a benefit that came out of it, if you ask me.
Yeah. It's interesting. I had this conversation with lawyers and district attorneys and others in the court system, and how they're using technology in the court system is really transformed it. I don't think they're going to be moving back again. For example, they used to have numerous guards involved and a lawyer going to meet with a prisoner at the jail, whereas now they're doing them using technology, and you don't have all that time of traveling and waiting and all these resources tied up. I think it's going to change things. Expert witnesses being able to be connected to the courtroom, not having to fly in, just connecting them, just using the technology. Unbelievable changes.
I agree.
So Dane, as we begin to sort of wind down this part of the conversation, what closing thoughts do you have?
Well, our partnerships are important. These are partnerships. These guys are great. I appreciate their efforts. And the Central District has 4 of their folks, and the Northern District has 4. So it's going to be a great committee. One of the things I want to add, too, is when you're talking about high-speed internet on the business side, I deal a lot with ports all the way across in industrial complexes. Most all that I've talked to have all agreed that the lack of high-speed internet, they lose business on a regular basis because the specific ones that I talked to didn't have it. This is going to bring an economic boom to Mississippi. And when you're talking about high-speed internet, you're talking about affordable high-speed internet. I get that question a lot. This is going to be in line with costs that are affordable, and it's also going to be. When I say high speed, now I'm not an expert, like I said before, but I do know that if you have DSL, typically you have what's called a 25 up and a 5 down, and this will give you an idea of where we're going with our speed as we progress. It'll be 100 up and 100 down. So when you talk about high speed, you're talking about extremely high speed, and we'll be some of the first in the nation to do this. And, as telecommuting and various other things are coming to bear now in this COVID world, I'm agreeing with Shannon about doing interviews. We're doing this. And so I think you're going to be able to see a difference very soon, Ricky, very soon. I want to make one point. One point too.
Yeah.
One of the people that's on the committee I put on there was in an at-large position, and that's Chris Champion, who's the Director of Governmental Affairs for C-Spire. C-Spire has come out to be a huge partner in this. It's a Mississippi company, and they want to be part of it. They've worked out and are continuing to work out agreements with the co-ops as well as Mississippi Power and Energy to start moving high speed even further. And then we are also, I got to give kudos to Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College and Jones County Junior College, because we're meeting with them and working on apprenticeship programs for tower workers in the 5G world. The problem with 5G is they have 20,000 open jobs now. We've got to train those people and get them moving. So we're going to do the 5G in connection with the broadband so that we can explode this thing out quicker and we can get people under high speed, starting with the unserved areas and the underserved areas.
Well, that's terrific. So as I mentioned at the outset, the pandemic has revealed the opportunities that were really already there, but I think it created a very compelling case for action, because you've seen people begin to implement and adopt and accept technology as ways to do things. As Kent talked about, the acceptance of having patients accept the process and recognize you don't have to be face-to-face, and students and parents accepting that as it relates to the education process, and business people that Shannon talked about using technology in ways we never imagined we would use it again. All of these are transformative natures. They're going to create structural changes in the way we do things. And Mississippi now has, with this Connect Mississippi committee, an opportunity to really understand what are the best practices and how do we use this new broadband connectivity that we're creating for ourselves. So, hey, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit deeply in the last segment with Wayne Rodolfich. I want to talk to him about the changes in the educational system most recently and what their pandemic experience is. And then Kent had a really important conversation with Dr. Dobbs just before he came. So we'll be back after this break.
Get out of the house and over to Big Play today. 2 massive arcades, bowling, go-karts, 2 mini golf courses, a 2-story state-of-the-art laser tag arena, bumper cars, and right now get a $50 game card for only $25. Visit our station's Facebook and print on demand so you can play at Big Play Entertainment Center now. These deals won't last long, so make sure you get your half-off deal. Big Play Entertainment Center, Highway 90, Biloxi. Bowl, play, eat. Go to our station's Facebook to get your half-off deal now.
What decisions are being made by state lawmakers, and how will they affect you, your family, and community? If you listen, you'll know. SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk app, and at supertalk.fl.
Hi, I'm Billy Kinder, host of Big Billy Kinder Outdoors. Here the show Saturdays at 1, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Turkeys, whitetail, Grenada Lake crappie, or Gulfport redfish. We enjoy it all, especially when you're in camp with us on SuperTalk Mississippi.
You could be spreading the coronavirus without realizing you have it, so do your part and stay home. It's important to limit in-person interaction with anyone outside of your immediate household, but phone and video chat are safe ways to connect. It's also important to limit social gatherings. If you need essential items like food and medicine, try using a delivery service. If you must leave your house for essential items, or if you want to take a walk for exercise, make sure to wear a cloth face covering. Stay at least 6 feet away from other people. Try not to touch frequently touched surfaces like light signals, street signs, or benches. And wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds as often as possible. This advice applies to people of any age, including teens and younger adults. It takes all of us to slow the spread of the coronavirus, so stay home unless absolutely necessary. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information.
Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk, Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else.
Hey, want to come work for the #1 radio group on the coast? TeleSouth Media has a great opportunity for an outside sales consultant. Get paid while having fun and work in the exciting, fast-paced world of radio. We have award-winning stations like 97.9 CPR Rocks, 105.9 The Monkey, G96.7, SuperTalk 103.1, and 103.5 The Possum. Take the first step towards a new and rewarding career. Submit your resume to Jesse@telesouth.com. That's JESSE@telesouth.com. TeleSouth Media is an equal employment opportunity employer.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen. Okay. Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices. Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We've been having a conversation with the chairman of the Public Service Commission, Dane Maxwell, and members of his Connect Mississippi committee. Before we move on, there's another fund that's available to us. I mean, it has a significant amount of money in it to help with connectivity. Tell me about that, Dane.
Well, thanks to the great work of our senators, we were able to achieve the goal of getting $960 million set aside for broadband expansion in Mississippi. We'll see that money real soon, and it'll take Mississippi to the next level with an total investment of about $1.2 billion.
Wow, that's incredible. And now, as a result of the show, you have a better understanding of why we need to do that. There's always the big but for Mississippi is we're a rural state, and private enterprise is not going to be able to go out there and make their investments. They can't make that business case work. We need federal money to be able to pull this off. Hey, so Wayne, we're in the pandemic situation. You're back in school. How has your COVID experience been so far?
Well, we've had a very good first week, but I think it's very important that when you're dealing with something like this, it's not something that you conquer because you can outsmart it. You have to play by the rules that have been set. I think our medical community has given us a very clear set of guidelines. And if we follow those guidelines, if we have the ability to trace the way that the State Department of Health wants us to trace, that we can manage it at a much better level. But I think the wearing of the mask is very important. The social distancing, not touching your face, making sure you keep your hands clean. All of those things are very important, and you have to just be disciplined enough to continue that discipline as time wears on, because we have unfortunately, we become complacent sometimes about what the rules are in everything we do in life, and this is one of those things we're going to have to remain very rigid in our expectations as it relates to keeping people safe.
Well, congratulations on at least so far a good start. So, Kent, you and Dr. Dodds had a conversation just before you entered this conversation. Tell me about that.
Yeah, pretty interesting that these two would come together this morning. That Dr. Dobbs called about five CEOs across the state, a large system, to sort of have a conversation relative to how can we communicate better and assist those facilities that are stressed and can no longer take admissions and transfer them appropriately to another system that does have a better availability. During the COVID, I'd say over the last 2 to 3 weeks, Mississippi got hit pretty hard. We have managed, but the ability for those facilities to be overwhelmed, not just with COVID, but with their regular patient load, and the ability to safely put that patient in an environment where they can be cared for, whether it's a COVID patient or another transfer, has not been easy. The ability to transfer that patient and having a single source of transfer communication has been sort of managed locally, and not the ability to sort of do that from one gatekeeper has not been in place. So Dr. Dobbs had us on a call this morning talking about, in the event that there is a surge, which we suspect may happen this fall, combining COVID with flu, that how are we going to handle a surge? There needs to be a single source of transfer coordination. Using MedCom that's controlled through the state and UMC, the ability to transfer that patient through a phone call and saying that Memorial has a bed available, Singer River has a bed available, Jackson has a bed available. That's going to be the primary source of how we can not create a delay of care, but to get that patient at the right point of entry at the first time, not have to transfer them. So that involves communication. So, Chairman Dane Maxwell has done an amazing job to have the vision to create this need for us to connect Mississippi. And it could not come at a better time when everything is under the microscope. But it's not just the COVID system of care transfer. We can take this and through Dane's committee, expand it to multiple systems of care, have a stroke system of care that's coordinated through the non-regions. That way we can support the rural hospitals. Right now, if you're COVID, you show up at a rural hospital, you're going to go to your normal referral point of entry. So if you're in, outside of Jackson and you're used to going to UMC, that's your normal entry. But when you end up in Jackson, you feel that there's no beds to be able to allow you. Having this communication line through MedCom, they can call from that rural hospital, say, where's my closest bed, and then direct you the first time rather than having to delay your care. This fits so nicely in with what's going on with what Dane has created. So Dr. Dobbs is putting that together right now.
So that's terrific. We're almost out of time, but real quick, we hit a plateau, and there is concern about a surge in the fall. And just say your message one more time, Ken. It's so important for people to wear their masks, practice social distancing. Just make your case one more time.
Absolutely, it does work. Please be mindful. Wear your mask. Practice social distancing. Wash your hands frequently. In our facility and many facilities across the state, we actually every hour on the hour play a tune that reminds us to take the time and wash your hands. There's no better way to stop the spread.
Wow, what a great show, and I want to thank all of you guys for participating today and for the wonderful up-to-date information from Kent Nico and from Wayne Rodolfich. Anyway, the chairman of the Public Service Commission, Dane Maxwell, I really appreciate you sharing members of your committee with us and for focusing on this area of opportunity for Mississippi that could really be unbelievably transformative, just as we've seen in this post-pandemic situation. As we move forward, the opportunities are going to be terrific. So thank you guys for coming together with me today and sharing your wonderful leadership with Coastal Mississippi in this state.
Thank you, Ricky.
Thanks, Ricky.
You bet. Have a great day.